Sweet. Let's do this.
Okay. Good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. We are back with another episode of Maker That Money, the podcast where we talk about turning your hobby into your jobby. Good morning, everyone. I am Pooch of Repkord. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Andrew Mayhall, the king of the Empire of Sticky 3D Gloop. Andrew, good morning. How are you
Yes.
today? How was your
I'm
week?
doing I'm doing great. Week was pretty good.
Yeah.
Glad to be back home.
Yeah,
out
you were
out
just
traveling.
you were traveling.
Yeah.
Where were you? Tell everybody where you were.
We were at the Orlando Maker Fair down in Orlando, Florida. So,
And
yeah.
for anyone listening back that doesn't know what a maker fair, what can one expect when they go to a maker fair? So this is why we didn't record last week, guys. We were off because
Mhm.
Andrew was off, so half the team was away. But tell people about a
Yeah.
maker fair that are listening back that might not be as plugged into the maker space and why they're so awesome.
So a maker fair is basically just a celebration of kind of all of those makers out there, those like the people here listening in, right? These people that are just making either cool stuff or they have the hobbies or they're turning it into their job. It's a cool place to see what people are up to, what they're working on. Yeah, it's great.
I love them. They've got a little something for every. I feel like anybody can get value out of a maker fair, even if you're not
Hmm.
into the making movement or any of that stuff. It's a great place to take kids. It's just there's always it's like this amazing show and tell kind of
Hmm.
that
Yep.
people are just kind of showing off projects that they've worked on, a lot of good passion projects. It's not necessarily all about business. There are companies that sponsor and do all that stuff too, but I feel like it's a great environment for everyone. So there's a good chance that there may be one in your neck of the woods. I mean, they're international.
Hmm.
I've been to the one in Prague. I've been to New York and the Bay Area one. I have not been to Orlando yet. And then there's mini maker fairs all over the country and
Yep.
stuff as well too, which are really cool. So good plug for Maker Faire. Was I think it was the brainchild originally of Make Magazine, right?
Yep.
And I'm not entirely sure what that relationship is nowadays, because it seems like it keeps going and coming and going. But
Yeah.
anyway, cool events to check out. And then other housekeeping, we will be off again next week because I will be gone to Form Next, which is a big industrial additive manufacturing conference in Frankfurt, Germany, which I am super excited about. I haven't been to Frankfurt in decades now. I mean,
Oh wow.
outside the airport at least. So looking forward to connecting with some of my European friends and just seeing some awesome new tech and exciting stuff in the additive manufacturing space. So I'm told it's like the industrial conference to go to. So that should be
That's awesome.
exciting. Yeah. For those of you new to our process here, we are a podcast. We talk about maker entrepreneurialism. So people that might want to make a run of taking something that's their hobby and turning it into a livelihood. We talk about all matters of subject from just business operations and stuff and strategy, technical stuff, but
Hmm.
we do not claim to have it all figured out. We are both very much
Oh
in
God, no.
process ourselves. But Repcord has been around for 6 years now. Gloop has been around for about 4, right? A little
5, 4,
5.
4.5, 5 years. Yep.
We'll round up for you. 5 sounds
Yeah.
good. And so we certainly have our perceptions of things. I have a uh small 1,700 square foot shop and 2 employees, so that's kind of the size that we're at. Andrew is still running out of his basement, though working on growing, and
Yep.
it's him and other Andrew as his partner. So you get a
Yep.
sense of our size of things. So that's some context for you. Um, we'll do the plug right now. Please like, subscribe, bring a friend. If you want to interact with us, we record generally every Friday at 9 a.m. on YouTube. So that's a great way to hop on, get in the chat, feed us some questions, tell us we're stupid, whatever you want. We like the interaction. We really want this to be a conversation as best as possible. We also have the Maker That Money hotline. So there's a link right above me if you're looking in. It's repcord.com/MTM hotline. And we are, believe it or not, a call-in show. You can call in, and operators are standing by to let you join our conversation if you are so inclined or brave enough to do so. So that's all of that.
Awesome.
This week on the pod, we discuss product reviews. We've all seen them. We all spend a lot of time on Amazon
Mm-hmm.
scouring the reviews, looking for the best of the best and all that stuff. So that's there's a lot to discuss there. There's obviously value as a consumer, value as a business, you know, to having these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll discuss some techniques and stuff. But before we do, we have to do the thing we try to do every week, which is bring in that positive energy. Focus on the
Oh
positive
boy.
energy, block out the bad, harness the good energy, block the bad. It's all good, right? We talk about wins, right? So we like to focus on some wins for the week. So everybody that's in the chat, if you've got something you're particularly happy about this week and you'd like to share with the group, we encourage you to do so right now. Go ahead and tell us, what was your win this week? What was something good that happened to you? Because we need to hear more of the good, given all the
Yes.
negative stuff that's happening these days. Andrew,
Absolutely. All
you know
right.
what?
I'm on the
No,
hot seat, eh?
no,
Okay.
I'm going first this week because I always put you on the hot seat first, which is just
All right. Let's do
never fair.
this.
I'm really excited. You know, as unsexy as it is, the importance of organization in business, it cannot be overstated. And we had a nice every quarter or so we do like a B stock sale or whatever where we'll go through the shop and we'll collect everything and we just did a great job. I'm really proud of my team for helping clear out some stuff. We're you know, clearing out the old, trying to get a better organization stuff. So we did
Mm-hmm.
that, and we're doing we found, like, basically pieced together like 9 more Repbox acrylic units that I'm going to put up after I get off the show here. So if anybody
Nice.
wants like a B stock for that, but I'm like, that's good because it just feels like we were able to get a little bit more zen, a little more cleaned out, make some space for the new product and stuff that we're working on. And so I am happy that we just did a little bit of house cleaning and it feels good. Okay. I think
That's
it feels good.
awesome.
It always feels good when you kind of clean out your space, right? So I'm going to take that as my win this week. What do
That's
you got?
awesome.
What do you got for us, Andrew?
Gloop is GS1 registered. We now have UPC codes.
Hey,
So we
that's a
have a
big
company
deal.
prefix. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that costs a bit of money. Why don't you tell really
Eh,
quick, because that's a bit of a
Yeah.
digression. But GS1 is the overseeing entity
Mm-hmm.
that handles like barcoding, right? So if you
Yep.
want to
That is
have a
correct.
product in on a shelf in a store, and Amazon
Mm-hmm.
kind of requires it, but maybe not as strictly as some of the brick and mortar people do. So this is something
Yep.
that you would do if you want to sell product in a store. Typically, a lot of these retailers want to make sure you have that approved
Mm-hmm.
barcode, right? So tell us about
Yep.
that.
Yeah, so I mean it's basically just signing up to this service where they give you a 13-digit code and you have that's what's kind of going to be recognized, here in the United States. When someone searches that code, it'll come up with your product information, whatever you have it registered in their database. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can get a GS1 or GTIN individually for like $30, something like that, which is fine. That's just one code. But the way to properly do it is to become GS1 registered with a company prefix. So
Yep.
you're buying a block of codes.
Yeah.
And so they have ranges. You can get like 10 codes or 100 codes or 1,000 codes, depending on how many products you're going to be
Give us
selling.
give us a sense of what that costs.
Yeah, so generally speaking, I think it's somewhere like $250 for 10 codes. If you're going to go with 100 codes, I think they give you a bit of a discount at like $750.
Yeah.
And then, it goes up from there. 1,000 codes is about 2,500 bucks. But every variation of your product, every package size,
Has to
all,
have its own
all of that
barcode.
requires its own code.
It's a
Yeah.
unique ID.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
And to give you some context, guys, that's actually come down substantially from even
Hmm.
just the last 5 years. Because I looked into this really, really early on, and I want to say that it was far more expensive than that. So that still
Yep.
feels, expensive to the average person. You're like, wow, that sucks. You have to pay that. And then I think
Hmm.
there's an annual
Yep.
renewal fee for your licensing and stuff. It's kind of a racket, right? But
Yep. It
I
is.
mean, it's a
It
business,
is.
you know, and they
Yeah.
maintain basically a global database of these barcodes,
Hmm.
and it's become kind of the de facto standard for a unique product identifying marks. Yeah. And there's
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
ones too. Like, I mean, I know there's other code formats like
Hmm.
EAN and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Are those handled by other entities, or is that just a formatting
So
thing?
I believe there are other entities, but generally speaking, there's like the GS1 for the US, then there's ones for I think there's another governing body for the EAN, EIN, or I'm not sorry, not EIN, EAN, UPC codes for Europe. But yeah, they basically same thing. So it works out. I mean, it's a big kind of, I guess, kind of rite of passage going into retail now. Having that UPC code and everything else is going to be pretty exciting. It's a little win, but it's
It
still a win.
is. No, I mean, it's funny that we have these little metrics along the way where it's like you feel like you're getting some
Hmm.
legit, like, okay, this is
Yeah.
real. I think that
Yeah.
certainly when we when I started paying rent and had a shop and hired employees,
Hmm.
like those are all things. But like I remember that too, like getting barcodes. What's another one that's like a kind of a milestone in business, like getting your actual business license sometimes, all
Sure.
those things, like, and we don't really stop and reflect on like the progress of like
Hmm.
what you've built, and those are the things that add brand value, to
Hmm.
who you are. So when you think about like maybe getting a trademark or getting a patent or
Yep.
any of those things, like those are all kind of steps along the way of like building up your brand value. And
Yep.
it's, that's nice. So kudos to you for that. That's a good win. I want to go through a couple wins in the chat. We've got, let's see. Oh, Grant from 3D Musketeer says he finally installed some smart dimmers and switches in the audio room and he did not get shocked. Good for you, Grant. Listen, having been one who has ridden the lightning more than his share of times from doing all his own electrical work, that's a good win. Also, I love smart switches. My entire house is filled with them. I've got a link to my Alexa, so I can just be such a dork and say turn on all these lights, turn these off, whatever. But I find it handy because I'm often my hands are full, and who has time to flip light switches like some sort of normie. Um, I love voice control stuff. It's the future. The future.
It's the
The
future.
future. What else? Oh, Filament Stories. Courtney, good to see you. I'm going to see you next week in Frankfurt. That's exciting. Let's see. Organization is her favorite pastime. I'll bet she's just constantly doing amazing organizational things. Alex out of the UK designed and ordered more exterior banding. A lot of fun with it, and he's looking forward to the parcel. I don't. Maybe I missed some context earlier on what that exactly is for, but hey, a win is a win is a win. Good for you, Alex. We're happy for you. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of excitement and energy to start off. That's how we like to
Hmm.
lead off, right? You can just hear
Yes.
it in my voice. I'm happy for the wins. I wish everybody as many wins as they can possibly get these days. Let's talk about
Oh
product
boy.
reviews. So I'm gonna lead off. We're gonna go about this from a different direction, and I'm gonna lead off like with a question, with a hard hitting journalistic question
Oh
for you,
boy.
Andrew. I'm gonna ask in this day, product reviews have been a thing for
Hmm.
quite
A
many
long
many many
time.
years now.
Yes.
So almost since the dawn of e-commerce on the website, right? On
Hmm.
on the web.
Yep.
Um, do they have value
Hmm.
anymore? I'm just gonna put it out there like that. Do product reviews, and you guys answer this in the chat as well. Do product reviews have value? And that's just like a big sweeping kind of.
Yeah, that is a big one. I think it depends on the person. And the reason why I say that is some people will prioritize. I think when it comes to purchasing, like how they're going to purchase their items, if it is something that has a positive review or a negative review, and kind of determining is it really worth the value that they're putting on the item. For me, I'll occasionally look at reviews, but most of the time I'll just look at pictures or images, and if it looks like something of quality, like, I'll give it a shot. But I know my wife is completely different.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
will sit there and read every single review
Oh, wow.
for like literally minutes to hours before she actually decides that she's going to get something.
Yeah.
And and then half the time she gets it, and then she's like, I knew that negative review was true. I should have never bought this piece of junk, and then curses it.
uh,
you,
yeah.
you know um
No,
so
you're absolutely right. So there's I mean, it's such a broad, sweeping, generic question, obviously,
yeah,
right? And fix some dude in the chat says, real reviews have value, certainly.
sure.
There's a lot of things that go into what is the value as well, right? Like, and
Mhm.
how how expensive is this product? Like there's a degree of like,
Mhm.
I know if it's typically if it's a more expensive thing or something that I've been thinking about for a long time, I'm going to spend time researching it. I'm going to read as much information as I
Sure.
can get on it. I love the idea, as many do, of like, well, is this going to be like, what is the best way to get a sense of a product outside all of the marketing speak that's out there? Of
Mhm.
course, the problem is that a lot of less savory brands and companies out there have learned how to game the system, and I know
Yep.
that there's rules. If I'm talking about Amazon in general, because it's probably like one of the largest aggregators of product reviews that
Mhm.
we have to go by. There are obviously a ton of companies out there that are just going for
Yep.
that star rating, that review at whatever cost. So, you're not supposed to be able to pay for reviews, or
Sure.
there was, and that the rules around that have changed over time. There would be deals where it's like, we will send you a product for free if you will do an honest review about it. But then,
Mhm.
you know, um, so the nice thing about Amazon is that at least there's some degree of like they can't control, the person's listing can't control whose reviews get shown and don't get shown. And
Yep.
so
Mhm.
in the aggregate, as a trend over time,
Mhm.
you would hope that that average comes out, but that takes a lot of reviews, in my opinion,
It
to get
does.
a really good sense of it.
Mhm.
And so that's something where it's a public forum review. So I think there's a lot of
Mhm.
context that has to happen. And
Yep.
then there's like your own website where certainly you can put up stuff that has product reviews, but I see that and I'm like,
Sure.
of course you're only going to put the best, or maybe you're going to like, if somebody's like really
You're gonna
flaming, like
cherry
you're going to
pick.
you're going to
Yeah.
cherry pick. You're going to cherry
Yep.
pick, right? And so
Mhm.
as a product review that is on like a company's own website worth anything, I would say probably not.
Sure.
A better company would hopefully just leave it open to the public and, respond
Mhm.
to comments and stuff, and hope that there's, and companies do.
Sure.
But it's unfortunate because there's no denying that psychologically it matters, right?
Mhm.
Like if you go
Absolutely.
and you see two products on a listing and one has a 4.5 star review and another one has a 3 star review, and maybe
Mhm.
even if they, even if like, the problem is like when one has like 5,000 reviews and the only other one only has 100, right? Your sample size is
Yep.
so much smaller, right? But
Yep.
psychologically, like Amazon and other companies, I like, just by putting that star rating there, people are like, well, I'm gonna gravitate toward the one that is just like better
Sure.
rated,
Yep.
because we as humans probably don't spend as much time like analyzing the information that's put in front of us in this
Mhm.
day and age of
Yep. Oh,
disinformation,
yeah,
misinformation, all
exactly.
of that stuff.
Exactly.
So, given all of that, like, it's it's hard to know what to think as a consumer. Certainly, like, if we're putting our
Mhm.
consumer goggles on right now. We'll talk about as a company in a second.
Sure.
What do you think?
So, it's tough because, as a consumer, I mean, I've done this before. where I will look at a review and then, I'll kind of like, okay, well, this one has some higher reviews, but it has a lot more, and this one's lower, but it's a higher rating, and I'll try and kind of weigh it out. And this is where, I think the consumer has to make the decisions ultimately and evaluating, the worth of the item, because I think ultimately that's what the reviews are for,
Yep.
is for consumers to actually have some sort of baseline for their worth of, okay, I'm going to buy this unit for $10, right? $10, I might have a decent amount of disposable income, so $10 doesn't really mean a whole lot to me, whereas someone else who might have less disposable income, and that $10 means a little bit more, they're going to want to make for sure that they're getting some sort of value out of that.
Right.
I think that's where it really comes down to play.
Yeah.
um in the aspect of a customer going to a website directly, where the website owner controls the reviews, I still think there is some incredible value there. And I'll speak from experience. Here at Gloop, we never had reviews on our products at all. We
Okay.
had the ability to put a review on the website for a long time, but as like you, it's like, it's never going to be worth anything because people are going to think we're going to cherry pick it. We're going to hide all of the bad reviews,
Right.
whatever. And so it's just never going to do anything until one day we're like, you know what? Let's just try it and see. And how our website works is after a certain amount of time, after you purchase the product, it will send an email soliciting a review, basically saying, "Hey, would you mind telling other people, how the product works for you or whatever else." It's very generic.
Sure.
We don't promise anything. We're just like, would you care to leave a review?
Yeah.
And to our surprise, so many people started leaving reviews.
Yeah.
And we never really actually, thought that this was a good way for us to get feedback on how our product was working. So on the business side, it was super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like we were getting some kind of unfiltered, unbiased reviews.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, there's a decent amount of, just, these little 5-star, like, it works or it's good or whatever. And it's like they don't provide any context. And there's also been a few where 1 stars where it came in and it's like, I hate it. And they never explain why.
You're like, more,
They
please,
never
more. Yeah.
y and it's like, okay, well, what's going on? You know?
I hate those so much. It feels just like a drive-by, right? Just somebody just like came by and slapped you and ran away. You're like, what the hell?
Yep.
You know, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, I don't have a problem with people. Like, I understand that the mistakes are gonna happen. Things are gonna be imperfect. Like,
Mhm.
I'll just talk from our site. We did have reviews up for a while, and then I pushed an update to the website that broke the review engine, and then I
Mm.
never fixed it again. And I've had a couple of people actually reach out and just say like, I love this. I would like to leave a review. I've had other people email me directly, and there's probably a lot of people that I just never heard
Mhm.
from because they didn't have a means to do that. Um,
Sure.
I don't think I'm inherently opposed to it. I think part of the challenge as a business and as a small business a lot of the time is I still struggle with people finding our product and even understanding what it is. And so
Sure.
when somebody buys something, so I'll just speak frankly with our storage boxes. There are
Mhm.
so many people out there that assume that it's a dry box, meaning that they think that they should be able to put their filament in it,
Mm.
close it, and throw
Yep.
it into a lake, and it'll float. Um,
Sure.
why that's the assumption is just beyond me. But I understand. Like, there's a fundamental like filament and 3D printing guys like will absorb moisture over time and stuff like that, and so there
Mhm.
there's a degree of protection that we want to do, but the whole point of our design, first and foremost, the design was organization and then practicality of I want to be able to print from this thing or put it up there.
Sure.
I can keep it protected to some extent, but it's not a perfect system for any of those categories.
Mhm.
But I have a lot of people that they look at it, they go, "Oh, cool dry box, I need that." They buy it and they go, "Your dry box sucks, bro." And I'm like, "What?" Where, first of all, where in the description? Nobody reads the description. Nobody like understands that. So like, but where did it say that it's a dry box? And two, if somebody is assuming that and then goes and leaves a review without having the context
Mm-hmm.
of even what it's for. Same thing, we updated the roller mechanism and everybody's like, the rollers don't spin. I'm like, they're not supposed to spin. Like, if you
Yep.
read the details around what this thing is, but you don't get that. And so I think there's a multifaceted issue that I still have to address in terms of like providing better means of getting information about what the product is before useful reviews
Sure.
can even exist. I don't know. What do you guys tell me
Sure.
in the chat what you guys think about that? Like it's
That's
an ongoing
that's an
frustration
excellent
for me.
point.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent point because, for example, 3D Gloop is an adhesive. And most people, when you try to tell them how to use an adhesive, they stare at you and they're like,
I'm not
"I'm
an
not an
idiot.
idiot." They're like, "I
Yeah,
know how to use an
I
adhesive."
can use
But,
glue. No, you
I
can't.
could yeah, I can use glue. But the thing is glue isn't like a normal adhesive. And there are a couple scenarios in which it really it will impact how the product performs.
Yeah.
We had a review come in specifically for our products where a gentleman ordered our smallest bottle product and he was intending to use it on a really large format sword that he was printing, and his goal was to glue this thing together, and he assumed that our glue was basically repackaged super glue, if you will, and that he had plenty of time to brush it all over the surface, and it had to be all over
Okay.
the surface in order to make a good bond, and all of these other things. And he was so frustrated because our product wouldn't work in the way that he, in his
Want
head,
he
wanted
believed
it
it
to
should.
work.
Right.
It should, that he went and left a review about how it didn't work and all of the reasons why. And it wasn't until we actually reached out to him and was basically asking more information, more context, that he literally said, "Oh, I get it. That makes a lot of sense." He's like, "Well, I feel like I reviewed the product incorrectly. If you wouldn't mind, go
Yeah.
ahead and take that down." You know?
So did he mod the review?
So unfortunately, our site doesn't allow a mod review. It's either on or off.
Okay.
And so, it was like, okay, well, hey, at least he's understanding. And we asked him and made for sure, like, okay, we could go ahead and take it down. But yeah, it was a very short, like, this didn't work. This is why it doesn't work. This is why it sucks, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until he actually understood the context of how the adhesive works that it was like, oh, it makes sense. So to your point, I
Yeah.
think that there's absolutely something there when you're saying like, you have to there's like a bar that you have to pass, if you will, of basically communicating to the customer what this product is and how it works before any of those reviews actually are meaningful to begin with,
It's
you
funny.
know?
I think about it. I'm like, it's almost like before you're allowed to leave a review, you have to go through like the basic training course, where it's like, did you, or like a basic, it's kind of like, the frustrating thing we get where it's like you call customer service and they make you escalate, to
Yes.
make sure that
Yes.
you're doing did you try
Mhm.
turning it off and back on again before we send you to a level 3 tech that, knows how
Yep.
to dig in. But as a let's focus a little bit deeper on this as a company that
Mhm.
wants reviews. Like I want feedback. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but I also want to make sure that everything is fair, and that's a two-way
Sure.
street. That I'm not
Mhm.
just going to cherry pick and put reviews up there that are
Mhm.
positive. Like I want to understand that you are leaving me honest, fair feedback, good or bad. I have no problem if there's negative feedback.
Sure.
If we screwed up, I don't have a problem with people knowing that we are human.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
it's when you don't even, like you said, you buy it and you assume based on whatever reasoning that it's going to work a certain way.
Mhm.
And you're not even using the product right to begin with because you didn't
Yeah.
RTFM.
Yeah.
Um, the other real pain point as a company, and Joe and other people that are in the chat can probably attest to this, is how frustrating it is that you get evaluated for shipping, right? Or
Mhm.
errors in shipping, right? How many
Mhm.
people, and I know that some companies have started to, like, I think Amazon started to segment out like how happy were you with the speed that this was delivered, so there's some segmentation of the review, but
Yep.
there's still a ton of people out there that'll be like, well, I ordered this on Monday and it said it was going to be 2-day shipping and I didn't get it till Friday, and so therefore
Yep.
1 star. And
Yep.
they're like, and the
Yep.
problem is that affects obviously your aggregate, which is what most people look at. Like, most
Mhm.
people, and I don't know, I'm
Yep.
speaking in generalities, are not going to dig in and look at every review and be like, okay,
No.
I
They're gonna look at
accept
that
this. They're going to
aggregate.
look at that
Mhm.
aggregate. And so
Mhm.
that's totally unfair in terms of, like, a lot of
Exactly.
times, like, they get mad because, like, customs, like, held it and they didn't know what customs was going to be. And so they refused the shipment, and they're all flustered because they were going to have to pay $80 in
Yep.
customs or whatever it is. This happens all the time when you deal with international shipping, unfortunately. And then
Mhm.
they leave a bad review and they never even got the product. So they're like
Yep.
reviewing something that they don't even have or
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
about, right? And so
Yep.
how is that helpful to anybody?
Yeah.
That's a little
It
pooch ranty, but
I mean, you're exactly right. In terms of the business side, like you were saying, we want reviews, and for the longest time, how we would do it is we would pick some orders at random, and we would actually, when we got started, we would
yeah,
send an email out, and we'd say, "Hey, so and so, thank you for your order. Could you provide any, sort of feedback on how you've been using it? How's the product working? Blah blah blah."
yeah,
But that was a very labor intensive process, and it was kind of it was not really transparent, if you will, because it's all happening on like a back channel sort of communication.
right.
I do think that reviews could be incredibly valuable in the sense, from a business perspective, of being able to actually hear what the customers are thinking of the product, if it's a decent review, right? Someone who's actually put some time into using the product, and like they provide an unbiased sort of opinion of, okay, hey, I just got this product, it works, but this is where it doesn't work, or whatever it might be. But most people don't do that.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, in terms of the business perspective, it's really then now just about, okay, well, the higher I can get these review numbers, probably the more apt people are to purchase.
yeah.
And I will say that that is still true. As unfortunate as it is, when we turn the reviews on, and our products are somewhere around like 4 stars, 4.5 stars on our website. Sales in some cases for our abandoned cart recovery actually went down, or like, people were leaving less abandoned carts.
Hmm.
And because they were seeing these reviews, and they were like, okay, well, hey, so and so thinks that this is a good thing. There's a few meaningful ones. And
Sure.
when we would reach out and say, hey, thanks for that positive review, like, what made you end up buying it? They're like, well, we saw other people leaving the reviews, and we thought it was actually probably going to work. So we're like, yeah, okay, let's go and get it. And so there is some merit to the reviews, I think.
Yeah. But
But
unfortunately, it's a couple bad apples that ruin the whole process for everyone, right? Like, it's just,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. Like, if there was an agreed upon rules of engagement, and again, this is totally idealist. I know that that's not how the world works, and the logic, the best logic we seem to have come up with is that over time that will come out in the wash. Like, if
hmm,
everybody is subject to the same things, like, you're gonna have
yeah,
there's gonna be no such thing as a perfect 5-star review, because a perfect 5-star rating,
hmm,
because there's
yeah,
always gonna be people that are gonna 1 star because of shipping, or, like,
yeah.
you know
The things that you can't control,
well,
and
and yeah. Let's talk about differences in market too. Like, as American
sure,
consumers look at things, okay,
hmm,
the lens. This is that we were talking about this ahead of the show a little bit, guys, and
yeah,
it's interesting. Versus, say, European or Asian or any other part of
hmm,
the world, in terms of what expectations are. Like, it's so weird as a company where you have a product and it
hmm,
is the same product for everybody, and
hmm,
I'll get people email me, like, this is so cool, I love it, and it's great, and it's worth every penny, and I want more and more of them. And then I get other people that are like, this thing should be worth half as much, and all this. It's the exact
hmm,
same product. They have the
yep,
exact same experience with it, and you're like, That is so
Eh,
bizarre, right? Like it doesn't how is it this wide of a, this is crap and
sure.
worthless to this is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah. It's that's interesting because like we were talking ahead of the show. I think it comes back to the individual person's perspective, but also again how they assign the value of their dollars that they're putting on what it is that they're purchasing. And perhaps again I think it also comes down to the internal perspective. Like for example, Mr. Guy who thought our glue was basically repackaged super glue, he had this preconceived notion that this was going to behave in this particular manner. And when it didn't, and it didn't meet that expectation that he himself created, it was worthless.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
was the worst thing that he's ever used. Whereas other people who are, maybe understand it a little bit more or perhaps have a different perspective, just in general, that it's more meaningful.
sure.
But one of the interesting things I think also kind of comes into play is here in America, so many people are taught like, oh, the customer is always right.
Yep.
And we had a segment on this, right? Where sometimes the customer isn't always right. And in many cases, they're not right. But it is somehow we've trained everyone into thinking like, oh, if I break the part and it was my fault, the company should replace it because it was still like
What
it's just
is
what
that?
they do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
Because we're what we're an entitled people. I guess I don't
Yeah.
know.
Or
That
or
is
the company
absolutely a
the
thing,
company
though.
is just some massive organization and they can handle the little bit of loss so that I am not out my hard-earned dollars, or it was like something out of my control, or even going so far as to lie about something that's very clearly a blatant lie and
Yeah.
that both parties know it's a lie, but it's just like, well, I'm still right, you owe me to fix this.
I had
you
it the other
know
day, and it depends. I think, of course, people are gonna be like, well, if I can get away with trying to get a free part,
Mhm.
like, why shouldn't I? Right? I mean, it happened, and we've been conditioned. So I gave you the Starbucks example at the beginning of the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you can go into
Yeah.
a Starbucks, order a coffee, spill it all over the floor in there, and like 99 times out of 100 they'll just be like, no problem, we'll make you another one, and they'll mop it all up for you and all
Yeah.
this stuff. And so,
Yeah.
like, what message is that sending people?
Well,
Right? Like,
Domino's.
yeah.
Domino's, didn't they do like a pizza insurance like commercial where it's like, "Oh, if you screw up your pizza on the way to your house, just call the store. We'll make you a whole new one."
Right,
You know?
right. Because they've realized, and for certain products at certain price points, like they realize that that
Sure.
customer service value, is there.
Mhm.
But it's not like they're charging you pizza insurance. That would be a funny product if they were like, "Do you
Yeah.
want to spend the extra quarter for the pizza insurance or the coffee insurance in case you spill this on the way to the car?" I got the insurance. I got the insurance. No, but that's the expectation, right? Like,
Mhm.
and maybe not for everybody, because I've done it both
Sure.
ways. Like I've and if it's offered to me, I'll take it. But I've definitely
Mhm.
like spilled my coffee in my car, and then I'm like, well, that was dumb, and then I'll go back and I'll buy another one. But if it happens inside and they see it, like, or I've even had it
Mhm.
like where I like literally went out to the parking lot, put it up on my car, went to open the door, knocked the thing off, and it spilled all over the parking lot. So I come in with like this empty cup, like to the person that just served me, and I'm like, I know this isn't your fault. I know you don't have to do this, but is there any way you can just make me another coffee? And they're like, oh my God, absolutely. I'm so sorry that happened. Thank you for
Yeah.
not spilling it in the lobby. uh, so that's really nice. But had they said no,
Mhm.
I mean, it's funny because I'm like, well, if they'd said no, I would have been like a little bit disappointed because it's almost like a humiliation at that point,
Sure.
even though it's
Sure.
my fault, right?
Yeah.
So I had a
Yeah.
guy contact me, broke apart when he was putting together, and this it happens, from time to time.
Mhm.
And he goes, "Hey, I broke this. Can you please send me another one?" End of email. And
Mhm.
I'm like, this is
Mhm.
not a hill I'm willing to die on. It was a small part. It was easy. It was like a buck to ship a replacement. And I was like, sure, no
Yeah.
problem. Customer service concession, warranty
Sure.
replacement, whatever. Um, For bigger things, sometimes I'll be like, you know what? Because we have stuff on here. If you break it when you're
Mhm.
putting it together, we will offer replacement parts at a discount. You set the tone
Yep.
immediately, and a lot of times people are nice about it. They'll contact you. They'll say, totally my fault. I screwed up. I broke this. Can I get a replacement? What do I need to do to get a replacement part? They just ask the question.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
most of the time, if it's super cheap, I'll just be like, no problem. I'll send you another one. If it's kind of a bigger thing and it's got to go to like France, I'll be like, I'll tell you what, if you cover the shipping, I'll make you another part and send it to you. And
Yeah.
most of the time people are very happy about it. But these interactions are actually golden because like this is
Hmm.
where your brand reputation actually lives and dies.
Hmm.
It's so more meaningful, and I really wish there was a better rating metric for problem
Yeah.
solving
Absolutely.
than
Absolutely.
the actual pro, because like you will win over so many more people um
Hmm.
by screwing something up originally, having them come to you and then have you fix it, and then they will be brand loyal to you for a long time, assuming you
Sure.
don't keep screwing stuff up for them. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean, like there's definitely impact,
Hmm.
because most of the time like a person that buys it has a fine relationship
Hmm.
or experience with it, never contacts you, you'll never hear from them
Yep.
again. um
Yep.
and it's just
Yeah.
not as
No.
meaningful.
You're absolutely right, because like I'll go back to the early days when we launched Gloop, where we had problems with our product and the caps and how they sealed, and it we've lost untold numbers of customers because of those issues. However, there were a few customers that have reached out and said, "Hey, this didn't work." And it allowed us the opportunity to fix it. And it wasn't really that expectation like, oh, hey, you have to fix it. It was more so, hey, I just want to let you know about this. And it gave us that opportunity to go and say, okay, well, hey, yeah, that's our screw up. Or, oh, hey, you left the bottle open, you didn't tighten the seal correctly.
Yeah.
While that's not our fault, we're going to go ahead and take that customer service hit, or and we'll just go ahead and like replace that product for you. So it's kind of, I think it's a little bit of our own creation. Like, it sucks where customers just automatically expect things like, oh, I dropped my coffee in the in the lobby, will you make me a new one?
Yeah.
But also at the same time, it's a really good opportunity for the company to show how willing they are to go above and beyond. And so I do wish, exactly like you were saying, like there was some way to you know share those stories, or
Well,
communicate that to other
and
customers,
people,
you
to
know.
their credit, a lot of people will leave that stuff in their rating. I
Hmm.
really appreciate when I do read through reviews, the people that will not only leave a review but then leave an edit of a review, and say
Hmm.
update, either for good or
Yep.
bad. Like sometimes they'll start
Yeah.
with like a low star rating and they'll be like, reached out to customer service, they replaced it, they walked me through fixing it, I realized there was some issues, and I'm changing my rating. Great.
Yep.
Works the other way too. Started great, but then after 6 months of use, the hinge broke, and now it's
Yep.
not as. So a lot of that other stuff is like the timing in which people leave the rating. Right, very few
Hmm.
people actually come back and will leave like a year in review or whatever. But like
Yep.
and there was some comments on this early in the chat, the value of like a YouTuber review, which I want to get into in a second here, of like a
Hmm.
product where you're watching the
Sure.
video and you're seeing that experience. Most of the time it's their first experience getting it, and they don't ever come back to it, right? So it's like, yeah, okay, I
Hmm.
can take it out of the box. I'm talking about a 3D printer now. I can take it out of the box, set it up.
Sure.
I can run the G code that's provided. I get output. Great, cool. 5 stars. Meaningless in
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah.
I want to know how that thing holds tune over the course of farming on it for like 2 years straight. Like nobody, it's completely impractical. Nobody's going to take the time. I don't want to say nobody because there are people out there, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
Nobody is
The
going to
vast
come
majority.
back and do that. And so,
Hmm.
where the real value lies is like the true experiential piece.
Yep.
And so all you're getting is just like a snapshot of a moment in time of somebody's just first impression,
Hmm. Yep.
mostly. So
Oh
again,
yeah.
I'm like, how useful are these reviews?
Yep.
But
Yeah.
but we love them as consumers, don't
Yep.
we?
It It's tough. It's very tough. I think, in the aspect of reviewing something more complex like the 3D printers, you have some very valid points where there's this is expected to be in operation for a while. And I'm thinking like, okay, for instance, we are in the market for some new machinery for producing our products.
Yeah,
And when we reach out to these companies that produce this machinery, some of the first things I ask for is references. Now, references are a little bit different than reviews, but
for
in
sure.
essence, they're still a review, because now what I'm able to do is I'm able to contact that company who purchased this piece of equipment and ask them how it's going, ask them maintenance schedules, breakdowns, that sort of stuff. And a
Yeah.
lot of times you don't get that when it comes to, whatever you're buying, unfortunately. Whereas, I could see some real value there in 3D printers, like having the ability to have customers that, might even be able to take questions or whatever from other customers, like, the open form, if you will. Um,
That's really
you know,
interesting. Like, are you actually so when we're talking about big industrial expensive equipment, that's incredibly
hmm
valuable information. I'm surprised nobody's
hmm
like better figured out how to monetize that. Are
yeah,
companies actually giving, well, first of all, that's still cherry picking because they're not going to
it is.
send you
It
to a
is.
company that hates their stuff. And
Yeah.
at a price point when you're buying like a $30,000 piece of machinery,
hmm
you're pretty invested in that thing once you've got it, right? And so
Exactly.
again, you're like, you're not
hmm
gonna just like, ah, it didn't work and toss it out the way that you did with, whatever
Yes.
crappy thing you bought off of Amazon. So
Mhm.
again, there's just bias inherent in the system. And
Yep.
it's like when you call for a job reference, that feels like a
Mhm.
ridiculous process to me as well because nobody is ever going to put a reference. I'm not going to say nobody because there are some stupid people out there, but nobody's ever going to leave a reference that is
Uh,
not going to
yeah.
like leave a glowing review. That'd be stupid,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just too cynical, but you're
Yeah.
getting. I mean, it is
Mhm.
nice if they'll put you in contact with a customer. I know obviously there's privacy concerns and all that stuff.
Sure.
That's a
Mhm.
pretty nice service though for sales. What I
Mhm.
mean,
Well, yeah, and usually if you're buying a piece of equipment, you can ask and say, "Hey, listen, I want to talk to someone who has this piece of equipment in operation." $30,000 is a lot of money for, a small startup like us. So it's like we want to know that it's going to actually last. Now, you can tell us all your marketing stuff all you want,
right?
but until I'm able to have that one-on-one conversation with another customer that has it, it's a lot harder, for me to gauge. I think I do think that that's you're saying it is a bit of cherry picking, but we're getting closer, right, to
Yeah,
what's actually,
yeah,
the meat and potatoes, if you will, of the whole situation.
yeah. It's
So,
never going to be a perfect system, is it?
mhm,
But it is. I think it is nice to have some kind like. It just depends on what your expectations are, right? Like that it's
mhm,
going to take some setup time. There's going to be some calibration that's got to go on and all this stuff. But you
yeah,
can still ask some useful questions in terms of like, well, how long did this last you? Just get to some expectation for budget, even if it's
mhm,
not like an immediate thing. It's like these are all
mhm,
factors in understanding the product. Like I wish
yep,
people like did that kind of diligence. And like I said, the more expensive it is, the more diligence you would hope people are
yeah,
gonna do. You buy a
yeah,
house, you pay an inspector, you go in there, you kick the tires.
mhm,
These are not impulse buys, right? And
nope, mhm,
that's a completely different experience. It's interesting because as a manufacturer, it's
mhm,
only now that, well, one, we're making a name for ourselves in the space, but two, that we're starting to get approached for reviews of more like manufacturing grade stuff. I don't
mhm,
want to say manufacturing grade, but it's like I did that stream last week of the jaw box automation system, or I've got some hardened
sure,
nozzles, diamond nozzles in the queue that I'm going to go over, the new belts for the printers, and it's only because I've been doing it for a period of time now that like the credibility and the utility exists, right? But like it's
sure,
not practical for most people to go start a YouTube channel, but then also have to start a company and run manufacturing for multiple years before you can actually give interesting perspective and valuable feedback. Um
sure,
So it's interesting. I think that we have a neat little space that we can exist in, and I love doing that. I would do it just because I'm
Hmm.
passionate about the space and the products and stuff. Anyway, I don't monetize that currently in any way whatsoever, but there is a lot of value and a
Hmm.
big need for as genuine a review of something as possible, and to be able to look at something with the eyes of like, how is this going to serve me over the course of the
Sure.
next 2 3 5 years, or whatever the depreciable lifespan of this equipment
Hmm.
might be, is a completely different thing than unboxing a $100 3D printer, right?
Yep.
um
Yeah.
that's a digression down the value rabbit, but it ties into the whole aspect of like, well, what
Hmm.
makes a review useful, right?
Yep.
um I don't know, guys, tell me in the chat like something that you have purchased that's a little higher of a price point that you either wish you did a little bit more research on,
Ooh.
or you did all the research and it did it meet your expectations? Did it fail? Like, give me some
Hmm.
context and stuff like that. Or have you used it long enough where you can say, yeah, I'm a pro, and I would really be able to leave a good, meaningful review on this at this point. Um,
Hmm.
there's probably a lot more of that that's out there, but it's not new, interesting stuff. Like, we only see a lot of these YouTube reviews. Let's talk about those for a second,
Ooh.
on
Okay.
the latest greatest, right?
Hmm.
Like any of the traditional influencers that we've dealt with in our space, the
Hmm.
minute that it's like 3 years old, they're like, well, that's 3 years old. Like, that's not,
Yep.
that's stale. I'm not
Yeah.
going to do a review on that. Right.
Sure. Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think someone here, in the chat asked about specifically like finding customers to give feedback after a year or 2 years or 3 years. Like, in that example, I think that there is some real value there, and maybe maybe it makes sense to reach out to those customers and say, hey, like you used our product a long time ago, what do you think about it now, or how has it been working
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for you,
Yeah.
because you're exactly right. Like, most people, they get caught up in, oh well, it's only the new things that sell, because everyone wants that shiny object, that new thing,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah.
um that's, yeah, that's definitely interesting.
Well, it's a completely different way of looking at the other challenge. So look at let's call it a
Hmm.
traditional influencer model, whether it's 3D
Sure.
printing, RC cars, whatever it
Hmm.
might be.
Hmm.
Um, as a business, look at the business of being an influencer on YouTube.
Hmm.
I would not categorize myself as such, but I would say I run with that crowd pretty substantially, and I've seen
Sure.
pretty intimately what it takes. So I'm looking at the business sense of leaving a review. So they need to make money to exist, right? So
Hmm.
traditionally,
Yep.
ad revenue is one way. Sponsorships is another. The minute
Sure.
that they're sponsored, there is inherent bias. There's a lot of debate around the utility of leaving a sponsored review, regardless of how many
Hmm.
people were talking about. Uncle Jesse in the chat, Clayton, good friend of mine. Um,
Hmm.
he is very upfront about who is sponsoring him and all this stuff, and you can do that all you want. He'll still get called a sellout. That you're never
Yep.
going to appeal to everyone. But my point is that when people don't want an unboxing, local maker Michigan mentions like it's
Hmm.
completely useless. I don't appreciate reviews of unboxing. You can't get a sense of
Yep.
how good something is after 2 minutes. Completely agree.
Yep.
I think that there might be value in just like, I want to see this new thing that everybody's talking about, and I can actually get some pictures and see it spun around. That's fine. Right, but like really understanding like, how well is this thing going to work, if I want this as a tool in my toolbox that
Mhm.
I'm going to use for business, for 2 years.
Mhm.
Clayton's not going to like use the thing for 2 years and then edit together a long video explaining over the course
Sure.
of 2 years what his experience was, or 1 year, or 6 months even.
Yep.
Right? That is just not feasible. It is not.
Mhm.
It's not profitable to probably run it that way, because it
Yeah.
takes so many hours, and people are not willing to pay for that. That's not to
Mhm.
say that there's not value in that, but we don't look
Mhm.
at that as somebody that's watching a YouTube video. You're not going to look at it and be like, this guy put 2 years of his life into reviewing this for
Yeah.
me, therefore I am willing to pay this versus just it be a regular YouTube video. Their expectation is I should be able to watch this for free on YouTube, or maybe I
Sure.
subscribe to, not have the commercials
Mhm.
or something like that. But that's it.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
So it all comes down to, again, the consumer perceived value of given stuff.
Sure.
If you want that quality review, it's gonna cost somehow. It's gonna
Mhm.
cost somebody time and money and energy. Are you willing
Mhm.
to pay for that? So
Yeah.
that's why we have, what's the best answer to that so far? Maybe something like a Consumer Reports. And I don't know if that's a perfect system either, but
Yeah.
at least they're
Yeah.
trying to, like, they get funding, they use that funding to purchase whatever they want without influence, supposedly, and then do a write up
Mhm.
of it, take their time, pay the writers
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think people look at Consumer Report. I got to imagine their
Yeah, I
subscribership
mean,
is incredibly down compared to what it's been in the past.
personally, I don't, I mean, yeah,
That's
I don't
unfortunate
think I
because
would
I
look up.
think that
Yeah.
there's good value in that kind of
Mhm.
review.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that there would be actually in many cases more value out of those things
So
than,
why
just a
why
generic.
is that?
So, speaking from the aspect of, like I was saying earlier, from purchasing a larger piece of equipment and wanting to get a perspective on how that equipment operates over time. Like for us, some of the big things are like maintenance schedules, if parts break, how do we get them? Those sorts of things. That support, if you will. Yeah, we can, hear the salesperson say all of these great whiz bang things, but when the rubber actually meets the road, how well does that actually happen in process? Um, and if it's a consumer report where it's an independent, kind of review, an in-depth review, where you're able to kind of audit these things, to me, I think that has a lot more value than even just a generic customer saying, "Oh, hey, I've had this for X number of months, or maybe I had it for this," and then a year later they go and update the review.
Mhm.
It's getting closer, but
Mhm.
generally speaking, I think it's probably, if you're going to go into the aspect of I'm going to do a consumer report on this product, you are going to kick the tires pretty hard. I think, whereas a customer
Kick
might
'em.
use it just as, is whatever they might do. Maybe they're using it incorrectly, maybe they're not. I don't know. Um,
Another great point in the
so
chat from Local Maker Michigan. It's like something being UL listed is supposed to mean that it's been
mhm.
tested to a
Sh-
very stringent set of safety standards, I'll add.
mhm.
Um, and yet, in this day and age, we've talked about this
Mhm.
before on the pod, price is king for people. And
Yep.
we will talk a good game. We want it to be safe. We
Yep.
want to have that UL listing, but given the two
Mhm.
products and the cost, guys, getting UL
Mhm.
listed on something is very expensive. I don't know why I said it
Yeah.
like that, but it is very expensive.
It's very expensive, and I think UL used to mean something more than it does now.
That's another part of it.
Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
I believe I believe that some of these testing organizations become bloated, and to a point where their stamp or verification is more so now just a literally a rite of passage, a verified badge that you pay $8 for, right?
Yeah.
And you get your sticker. In many cases, that's what it's come down to. Which is unfortunate because then it's like, well, how do you actually verify this? So, it's tough.
Yes, and I mean, then you start get this is another digression, but then you get into stuff like even the emission standards that used to exist, or they still
Mhm.
exist on cars, but like we found out that Volkswagen
Defeat devices.
actually
Yeah.
there was a lot. It wasn't just Volkswagen either. It was just Volkswagen was the big one that got outed for it. But there's
Yeah.
people
Yeah, they
cheating
got caught.
systems and yeah,
Mhm.
um again, so it's like we have these standards in place supposedly make it, but so we're there's shortcuts being taken all along the way, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that it's just degrading the safety standards, the customer experience, and all this, and all in the name of money.
Mhm.
Um, I would love to see something like a Consumer Reports and I know that they're still around, but
Mhm.
I would love to see more people willing to, you know, invest in
Yeah.
meaningful review like that.
Yep.
But maybe that's just
Yeah.
me. And honestly, you don't need that level of review for
Sure.
the umbrella that you're buying for $20 on
Yeah.
Amazon. Um
Sure.
but it stinks because it's like it's been diluted across the spectrum, and useful tools for making decisions is
Mhm.
it seems like it's going by the wayside, for a multitude of
Sure.
reasons. I don't know, man. That's not really the place I wanted to end up. Like, but
Sure.
if we're trying to wrap this whole thing up, looking at
Mhm.
as a consumer, I think we like the the same way we like the idea of made in the USA or buy local or
Yep.
anything. It's like we loved saying like,
Mhm.
oh, we like our product reviews and all this stuff. But like, if
Yep.
anybody's like stopping and digging in and being like, it's all kind of BS if you look
Yep.
at it, not entirely. Like, yes, like there are
Yes.
good people leaving, but you have to dig. And a lot of times,
Mhm.
time is money, and you don't want to spend the time to do that. And so maybe you look at the first 3 reviews and you're like, yeah, that feels about right. And at
Yep.
the end of the day, you make the purchase knowing that if
Mhm.
I'm wrong or whatever, I'm out 20, $30 for some stuff.
Sure. Sure.
It's hard to apply that for all products, right? So when you get into the 200, the
Mhm.
500, the $1,000 price point, like I think there's different decision making processes
Yep.
that happen along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it really comes down to again that perception of value. One person might not bat an eye at $20, where someone else says, "Oh, well, $20 is a decent meal for lunch or dinner or whatever for myself versus this bottle of glue, whatever it might be." You know.
Yeah.
So.
What's the message then as a seller? Like if you're
Hmm.
going if we're going like Caesar thumbs up, thumbs down here. For
you
your
know.
own website. Let's just start there.
Mhm.
Should
Yeah.
you have product reviews on your own website?
I think so. I do think so because for us, we have seen a noticeable uptick in
Thumbs up from
sales.
Andrew.
We have seen a noticeable, higher conversion rate when people are on the product pages that have reviews versus when they don't have reviews.
Hmm.
So, to me, the data is saying that there is something there. And to be clear, it's not much. We're talking like maybe 1%.
Yeah.
But, if, in a game of numbers, 1% can, be a decent amount on the bottom line.
Yeah.
So, you
Well,
know.
and it's interesting you say that because let's be honest, most e-commerce packages nowadays have just a pretty trivial means of enabling review system.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
the argument that there's really no reason not to, unless you
Mhm.
got so because I think the perception is, oh, you must have something to hide. Um,
Yeah.
my issue is the amount of, and maybe it's just an optimization, but just like given how hard it is to get people to read the information that I need them to have in the first place.
Sure.
But you know what? If the counterpoint to that is if they glean it from reading a review, at least they're reading something and getting some
Mhm.
information, even though you don't get to control that as much. I don't know. I know I
Yep.
need to. I would agree with you that it's so trivial to put up there. Like you should do it.
Mhm.
Because it's got that psychological impact, whether or not it really has that value, it has perceived value, and
Mhm.
so that's value, I guess.
Yep.
I'm just
Yep.
lamenting the fact that I just really wish it was more useful information,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
there is no perfect
Yep.
system.
Yeah.
Okay, as a consumer,
Mhm.
Chris in the chat, Practical Printing mentions he never looks at reviews that are more than 3 stars. I've heard a lot of people say that where they feel that they can glean a lot more useful information from the negativity than the
Mhm.
positivity, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate because it's like when you look at the bell curve of people leaving reviews, it's either people that are really happy or really upset, and you don't get a lot of that
Mhm.
chewy
You don't get it.
center,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It was all right,
Mhm.
it was fine. It worked. It did its job.
Yeah.
Like nobody's gonna take the time to leave that review. Um,
Yeah.
I would dig in a little deeper on that and say when I'm scrolling through reviews, I'm looking for length, like somebody that's actually
Mhm.
taken some
Yep.
time to put some thought into it. I'm not
Yep.
looking at what the initial star thing was. I'm like, okay, here's somebody that's like at least I've got thoughts, I've got feels on this.
Yep.
um,
Exactly.
good or bad, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
That'd be an
Yeah. No,
interesting way
I
to
think
sort reviews, sort it by like character count.
sorted by, yeah, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, sorted by length of review. That's a really interesting. That's something, that's kind of clever.
I would do
you
it.
know,
I
like
would totally do
like
it.
I know
Tell me in the
I know
chat if you
for
would do it.
instance, I know for instance,
Agree with me.
when I'm looking at some products on Amazon, I will look to see if, like, if it's something like a physical thing that it needs to be implemented or whatever. Like, I'll look at pictures and see people who posted reviews with pictures.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a Hinge or something else, like, I want to see how it functions.
Yeah.
That's where I find the meaning, or value there. But yeah, a length, review sorting, that's an interesting way to look at it.
You know what else might be interesting? This is again a bit of a digression, but if you were allowed to record a customer service experience, whether it's a phone call, a chat log, a video call,
Mhm.
where in the name of transparency, like that would be
Mhm.
useful. I feel like that'd be interesting stuff. And the
Sure.
data is like it's already existing out there. Like I know there's some privacy
Yeah.
issues, like if you're gonna consent to being recorded, but like from the consumer side, like if it's not like I'm not cherry picking these things, if there was a mechanism by which somebody could basically record the chat log or whatever and be like, this
Mhm.
was my experience in working, like that is some pretty valuable data as well, I think.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know, how you feel like about that. The other thing we
No,
didn't
I
talk.
think I think there's
Go ahead.
some interesting things there. I think there's something really interesting there, where that could be something that I could personally see some value in it for us, where again, you're capturing that customer interaction that many people don't get to see unless there is a problem. And
Yeah.
most people don't go out of their way to share.
Well, and I
So,
think people would be better. Like I said,
yeah.
transparency is just good for everyone. Like and it's so telling, right, in terms of the
Yeah.
experience.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know, I
Yeah.
I would love to see that. May be a great software as a service product for somebody.
I think
Honestly,
so. I think
just
so. Like, I
recording
mean,
chat logs, recording video chats, recording phone calls, whatever, and then aggregating it. Maybe in the way that maybe it's an add-on to something like a Trust Pilot, or there that was the other thing. There's third-party systems out there that exist so
mhm,
that they can be supposedly an impartial capture of these things, the way that Amazon has been
mhm,
for stuff. Because, like I said, me being able to post just cherry-picked reviews has very little value to the end user.
mhm.
But if I'm saying like I will allow Trustpilot to display whatever it is because I believe in my product and my customer service,
Yep.
that's way more impactful in my mind. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Look at
No, I agree.
we're innovating business ideas right
Yeah.
here. If you're somebody jot it down and make a business out of that, and then good on you if
Yeah.
you make billions with it, millions and billions. Yeah. Local maker likes it. Reaction videos on customer service phone call. I mean, it seems like it could be entertaining too. I'd
Yeah.
watch that, right? The YouTube channel where it's just like
Yeah.
I'm calling Whirlpool customer support today. Let's see what happens. The
Yeah.
problem is people are gonna start trolling, and like there's
Sure.
a lot of satire they can have, which would also be
Sure.
entertaining. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, YouTube could be a YouTube channel. Sure, you got to have your unique shtick, right? This has been a good
Absolutely.
conversation, guys. I appreciate everybody in the chat.
Yeah.
I hope that it's giving you some stuff to think about. I hope that as a consumer that I challenge you to be better and fair and leave reviews. I will tell you, as a
Mhm.
business, I appreciate all
Oh,
feedback, good
absolutely.
and
Yep.
bad. And it's like Courtney was saying at the top of the show, a lot of times it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it, right? It's like if you're gonna
Yep.
come at me
Mhm.
like your stuff sucks and da 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 da, like I'm gonna of course be defensive and a lot less
Mhm.
receptive to that. But if you come to me like and be like, listen, I wanted to just I bought your
Mhm.
product. I just wanted to let you know I
Yep.
had some issues with it, whatever. I'm so unbelievably, and I know you are too,
Yep.
appreciative of those people taking their time to do that, because most of the time, in my experience,
Mhm.
you'll find out after you get flamed online somewhere else that somebody was unhappy, they're never going to let you
Mhm.
know.
Yep.
and not even giving you an opportunity to correct or to educate them on the fact, you know what, you actually weren't using that properly, which is why it didn't
Yep.
work.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know what I would wrap up with, or one of the things I'm thinking of is like, part of the reason I don't like reviews, I would much rather the social media stuff exist out there because it's in public domain, right? Like I love
Mhm.
transparency. Um,
Sure. Mhm.
but I think that there's still ways that I could probably be better about implementing some of that transparency on the site, perhaps. And it's
Mhm.
not it's not if you have problems, it's how you deal with those problems that really, to
Sure.
me, has the value of stuff.
That makes me think like some of the things that we do at the trade shows where you saw we had that whole TV monitor where we would actually comb through like TikToks or Instagram reels or whatever of people using our products and getting their feedback from it, like, oh, hey, look what some of the cool things I'm creating or some of those things that I'm doing. To us, there's a lot more value in those experiences from people because again, it's showing people this is how, for one, you use our product, which is a little bit different than for instance, and typical glue, and just again their experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think that social aspect is really kind of king nowadays.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
more that you can kind of integrate some of that social aspect of the reviews into your products, I think is going to go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, what Alex is talking about, I'm into it. Like, I don't think anybody's quite
Hmm.
like nailed that yet. I don't know. You guys tell me if you think there's options out there, but support via public forums so anyone can see how you respond. Yeah, I mean, I love that.
Hmm. That's a good one. Hmm.
Um, I understand that there's implementation challenges to each of those things, but I think that it should, as a business, guys, you should focus on making sure that whatever your response, like if you're not comfortable saying something to a customer and knowing that it will oftentimes end up on social media,
Hmm.
whatever that is, the world we live in, then you need to look inward. There is something that you're not doing right. And I understand that it's really hard a lot of times when you get some very aggressive, very jerky people
Hmm.
contacting you and you want to, be that way. Like,
Hmm.
anybody that knows me knows that I'm a pretty, I think, pretty straightforward, easy to talk to person, and I try my best, all the stuff out there. But there are absolutely customers out there that think I'm a complete a-hole
Yep.
because I just didn't respond the
Yep.
way they wanted me to, and you just have to accept the fact that's always going to exist, and you hopefully are able to minimize that and help as many people as
Hmm.
you can, because there's no helping everybody, unfortunately. um
Absolutely.
but try your best, keep at it, assume you're being watched, and do act again with a little empathy, thinking about, well, if you were the customer and you received it this way. Most of the time
Hmm.
I'm mortified that we're putting stuff out there and we screw up, and I'm very humble about the whole thing because I would hate it if I got
Sure.
something that was broken or incomplete and stuff too. So
Hmm.
all good
Yep.
stuff. I really, like I said, I really appreciate everybody in the chat for participating. Llama, I hear you. We had a request about some topic information. Maybe we'll cover on a soon one. He wants an episode soon, yeah, on SEO.
Oh boy.
And having been done, having been a web developer and done a decent amount of it, I can't say that I'm current on all the latest, but there's a lot
Hmm.
there, and obviously there's a lot of value. What I might consider for that is trying to find an expert, maybe a business owner that runs an SEO
Yeah.
company or
So,
something like that, that we can
yeah.
actually get some good testimonial. That's a great suggestion, though,
Yes.
and we will absolutely put that on the list for a future one, because I know that's something we could all benefit from as
Absolutely.
business owners. So we
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thank you guys for your contributions. Tune in, not next week, because again I'll be gone next week, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. What day is that, Andrew? That's the
25th.
oh
Would that be
geez,
the
we're closing.
25th?
We're closing. Is that
Black
Black
Friday.
Friday? Should we have a
Black
Black Friday
Friday.
episode? We'll talk about Black Friday.
Yeah, let's do it. The
Uh,
importance of Black Friday, eh? No.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. We'll talk. We'll be back on
Yeah.
Black Friday to talk about Black Friday. I love it.
Yeah.
Until then, everybody, enjoy your weekend and keep on makering that money. I'm Pooch from Repkord,
I'm Andrew from 3D Gloop.
and we'll catch you on the next one. See you, everybody.
See ya.